but apparently there's a comment section where you can make comments of, if I could, I would love to go here. They're probably not going to listen to what you want, but you can do that route. Or there's also the second route of, hey, I can speak these languages pretty well, which is how I kind of went where I went. But yeah. Um, yeah, anyways, yeah. A few months later, I get my call, and they tell me, hey, you're going. And this is just paraphrasing, it's not word for word. But basically, the mission call says, hey, you're going on a mission? Guess what? You're going here. And I said, hey, Zach Rhodes, and that's my name. You're going on a mission, and you won't believe it. You're going to the Korea Busan mission, or Busan. And so I was pretty stoked. I was like, I wanted to go to Japan, but Korea's a good second. That's where I wanted to go. And so, and I thought it was really cool that I got to go to Busan because Busan is a beautiful place. It's just like, I mean, I'm not saying it's a perfect place because nowhere is a perfect place, but especially when you're in the rich area, or not that I served in any rich area, but especially when you're in the richer sort of businessy areas, or when you're in the coastal areas and you're at the beach, it's freaking amazing and beautiful. I would recommend anyone, if you're wanting to travel to Korea, go to Busan. Busan is so beautiful. But not that this is what this is about. It's not about travel. Although my mission was slightly about travel to me, just because I never really was able to go anywhere prior to that. My life was always in Idaho, which is where I'm from, or occasional trips to Utah, which is Mormonville. And I had been to Nevada, but it's like, that's all the same stuff. Like, it's just like the same thing, basically. Like, farmland and desert. Nevada less so. You guys have the gambling and the brothel houses and stuff, but that's besides the point. Um, anyways, yeah, so I was excited. Finally get to go somewhere, get to learn a language pretty proficiently, and use it with people, and learn about culture and what the world outside of our little pocket called America is like. I say little, I know it's really big, but I say little because everything's kind of closed minded. Again, I'm not trying to be controversial or make anyone mad. That's just how it is. But yeah, got my call very soon. I mean, not very soon. By July, I think it was. No, it was actually August. Yeah, August. So July, I quit my job so that way I can have some me time and some family time. And then in August, I officially started the mission. However, because of COVID, uh, so I didn't really describe it. So at the beginning of your mission, you do this thing called going to the MTC, or the Missionary Training Center. And during the beginning of COVID, when COVID was a big issue, they couldn't have you in the MTC because COVID. So they had to substitute with another route, which is, hey, everyone can do their MTC experience at home via the computer. And so mine wasn't really at home because at the time my family didn't quite have internet, and when we did, it was mainly for my mom's work. And also, I live in a very small apartment with my family that is very cramped, and there's a lot of people, and so I couldn't really focus. And so, and this is sort of a joke. Instead of having at home MTC, I always joke around about having at church MTC, because I ended up going to the church, which it's pretty cool. Any This is one thing I also appreciate about the Mormon Church. Any Mormon church around the globe you go to has Wi-Fi, and it's all the same Wi-Fi password, which is pretty cool. That means you can go to one in America, or one in Germany, or one in Japan, one in Australia, one in wherever, and it'll be the same password for the Wi-Fi, which I find pretty cool. Also, although that is kind of, yeah. Anyways, whatever the case is, that's where I did it. I did my MTC at the church. Not that that's important. And I know I'm kind of going through a lot of my story. I'm not trying to make this video be long, but I'm just trying to get you to understand sort of my Mormon background. But yeah, MTC, it went by, met some good people. My group was kind of funny. There's 6 of us missionaries. 4 of us were Caucasian, and then the other 2 had actual Korean descent. One was a full-blooded Korean American, meaning he was an American that had Korean parents, and then the other one was a half Korean American who had a Korean parent and a Caucasian parent. And so what I found funny about that though is all of us Caucasian people, we ended up going to the same Busan mission in Korea, but the 2 Korean ones, they both went to Cali. They went to California for their Korean speaking missions, which I thought was funny. Which is another thing with the missionary training center is they group you by the language you're going to be speaking as a missionary. And so, like, in my case, all Korean speakers. In another person's case, maybe all German speakers or all Spanish speakers, which is a big one. Or all anything under the radar of what they can get. There's going to be some class for that, maybe. So there are rare cases where they have to send people in pretty blind, but that's a rare case. Maybe they're opening up a country, or opening missions to a country that has finally accepted them for some reason, or something else like that. There are some cases where because of that, you're just kind of out of luck. There's just not a language class for you. But the MTC, they basically try to get you beginning in the language if you don't know any of it already. And then as well, they get you sort of used to teaching, at least in English, if not in the target language. So that way you know what you're talking about, what you're trying to teach people, how to go about that. But yeah, I guess, yeah. And then I will say there's 2 important things that happen during the MTC process, though. First thing, in order to go on a mission, you have to go to the temple. And so during the MTC process, I went to the Mormon temple and received what is known as the endowment. Yeah. People will have different views about what happens in the temple. It felt normal but weird. It felt normal because basically for this endowment process they just focus on talking about Adam and Eve and why what they did was important and stuff like that, and like under Mormon scope how they made promises with God and stuff, and like what sort of promises and what those blessings from the promises would do for them, which is what the endowment is about. Is you're becoming more Mormon, and as a more Mormon, you'll receive more blessings, more promises, and in order for these promises to work, you have to keep up sort of what you've been doing already, as well just have this keep this extra promise of trying to wear what is often referred to online as the magic underwear. If you've heard anything about Mormonism, there's always this bubble sort of people that like to make fun of the garments, as they're called, or the Mormon magic underwear, which are basically just a white pair of underwear and a white t-shirt that you have to wear underneath your clothes at all times. No, pretty much no matter what. as much as you can. You have to wear them pretty much 24/7. They do have some funky marks on them, but that's besides the point. The marks are supposed to have some sort of symbolism, which leads into the blessings that it gives you. I will say that the magic underwear, as they're called, not my favorite thing. I won't say it's like a reason I left the church, but it was highly annoying having to wear a t-shirt underneath my t-shirt at all times. You'd often get very hot and sweaty, but yeah, that's besides the point. But yeah, so I did that during that, and then as well, I blinked. Yeah, partial way through, as you could probably expect because of COVID. I said my mission was to go to Busan, Korea, but Busan, Korea was not very attainable at that point. From plethora of reasons, main reason being COVID. Other reason being I didn't have a passport or a visa or anything like that. Or in order to get a visa, you have to have a passport. So, yeah, and that was a hard thing because, yeah, my stepdad, being my stepdad, kept saying, "Hey, we'll get your passport." Never went in. And he always claimed he was going to do it by himself, which doesn't make any sense to anyone that has gotten a passport. You understand why. You have to be there to take pictures and stuff, and do the work yourself, and confirm things and stuff. But whatever the case is, I didn't get it. And so, who would have known? I got a reassignment for a temporary time, mainly because of COVID, but also because of those reasons. And I was happy. Uh, for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of dangerous places in the United States, which with the sort of temporary reassignment, you'd be in the States because I'm from the States. Ding dong, not that hard. Like if you're from Canada, you'd stay in Canada, or if you're from I don't know Nicaragua, you would stay in Nicaragua. Vice versa, whatever your case is, but I'd have to stay in the States. So I was happy with where I went because I worried. Um, Maybe it's just because I'm from the west part of the U.S., but it seems that the eastern part of the U.S. is very unruly, and there are a plethora of natural dangers. The same could be said of California. California's, which I'm not from California, never been to California, but California is also dangerous, and also has natural disasters, aka earthquakes. But dang, y'all in the east, I'm just saying, tornadoes, I find them cool, but absolutely freaking terrifying. Like, how do you guys live knowing that some, like, wind monster can freaking, I'll have to bleep that out somehow, freaking suck you up and throw you somewhere? Like, how do you live knowing that, like, the wind can literally pick you up like a child and throw you? Like, sorry for the other split. I don't quite remember what I was talking about before, but I'm pretty sure I was talking about Arizona. Anyways, Arizona, beautiful place, valleys, cactus and palm trees, and the mountains have trees, like actual like pine trees, and they're very beautiful. And occasionally some cactus, but yeah. Arizona, nice place. During that portion of my mission, I obviously had to do the work myself eventually, and I decided this stuff is a load of crud, and I should probably start, I don't know, doing stuff myself, like I did to get to my mission in the first place. And so, thankfully, by the grace of God or some gods, I don't know, uh, I received the stimulus check as they're doing at the beginning of COVID, which was nice because this allowed me to have money. which money isn't also a difficult thing with missions, which I'll get into when I talk about missions in general. But yeah, that was nice that I got some money to be able to use towards getting my passport and yeah, getting the ball rolling. And yeah, as kind of described, by the time I hit a year, I finally got to go to Korea. Yippee! Korea was it was good. I will say, when I got there, I had a quarantine for I think it was like a week or two. I forgot the number, but something like that, and that was brutal. Being in like one place for like that long, oh, like you can't leave, like not leaving your like, because prior to that, the U.S., especially Western U.S., like we didn't do that. Sorry to anyone in the U.S. that actually had to do that, but the West is a lot more sparsely possible, more sparsely populated, so it's not as big of an issue. And so the idea of having to stay inside, like, and actually doing that, yikes, that was not fun. But whatever the case was, we did it. Um, yeah. I'll also mention, it was my first, as I mentioned, actually going to Arizona. That was my first flight ever. I'd never been on an airplane before, but being on an international flight opened some eyes, because I was like, this is such a long plane ride. Oh my gosh. Just being on the plane for like that many hours in a row was just like, oh. But what you mean? I think it would be better if I was like most normal people, but I'm not. For some reason, I was created to be tall. I'm 6'5", by the way. So yeah, I don't know what that is in centimeters. I should, because I literally lived in Korea, but I don't remember the specifics, but it's like 193 or like 94, 95, something like that. 190 something centimeters. So I'm a pretty tall guy, and because of that, my legs the whole ride were rubbing up against the seat in front of me. Not fun. The other brutal thing, and this goes into rules, is I didn't know whether I should partake of watching shows on the airplane or not. Uh, I will say missionaries have a plethora of rules they have to follow, and I'm not gonna claim to be the best or most righteous missionary that ever had existed, but I tried to follow the rules where I could. And so I decided I'm not going to watch any TV shows. I did try to watch some that were allowed, but that got boring because I had already watched those shows like 50 times. Not really. I rarely watched anything during my mission. It sucked. At least we'll kind of get into things later, but yeah. For the at least the Arizona half, I'll just break it down though before I talk about Korea specifically. Arizona half, I try to follow rules. It's also because I just started there. I wanted to be a good missionary. I wanted to be a righteous missionary. I wanted to do everything I could to be as good as I could and to help people as best as I could. And I believed in the idea of trying to follow the rules. Yeah, there were some times that I wasn't as great. I learned that as a missionary, Facebook Watch is a dangerous place. There are some times I'd see some funny things on Facebook Watch and I got distracted. Also, being the big anime fan I am, there may have not been some times I indulged in some anime because I was feeling extra depressed. Because that is. I was depressed in Arizona, but also I think that the Arizona half realistically was my happiest part of my mission. The rules there. So here's the thing: there are a set amount of rules that you have to follow as a missionary that are from the apostle and prophets themselves. And then there's rules that are basically mission rules that are specific to your mission that come from your mission president. Usually these rules are pretty copy paste, but for the most part, like, they're all the same. In that mission specifically in Think, obviously I have my religion now, which I'll get into later, but I mean it's in the title, so it's not that much of a secret. But uh, yeah, um, I will think whatever God exists. I believe that there is an answer. Obviously, it's either there are gods, there is a god, or are gods, or there isn't. And if they do exist, I must thank them, because the Arizona half was pretty nice compared to the other half, which I'll get into when I actually get to talk about Korea. It felt more like a family. Um, I got to know a lot of the missionaries there, and everyone seemed to kind of care about each other. And as well, I loved their sort of media rule. Not so much for movies. Movies are usually a big no-no. Most movies, if ever allowed, are going to be church-produced movies, so it's about Jesus and God and stuff anyways, or about some sort of church-related thing. Or, in that case, they had like a few other movies you could watch that weren't by the church, obviously very church-related or involved in church-related topics. Uh, one of which was the Prince of Egypt movie, the one about Moses, if you know that movie by DreamWorks. And then the other movie we could watch was, believe it or not, Coco from Disney. So, which I understand why, because it had to do with the idea of like ancestry and trying to respect your ancestors and get to know them, which is a big topic in the Mormon Church, because that was part of the church. I mean, it was related to the temple, and that was sort of the motive was the temple, but you were supposed to try to get to know who your ancestors are, even if it's skewed for a certain purpose. You were supposed to, which I found nice. But yeah, but yeah. So I will say the music rule though was pretty good. Basically, the rule was as long as you can follow the spirit, it's good. I know that's a very broad definition, or a broad rule, so some people abuse that rule, in my opinion. But yes, at the same time, I can see why they didn't really abuse it. I mean, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I didn't really follow the rule perfectly either. I don't think that sort of rule can be followed perfectly, but so what the reaction to this would be is you could have people that they just listen specifically to the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Or there'd be people that would allow some Christian music. Um, or there'd be people that would take that Jesus step up one and listen to things like Kanye West Jesus related music, which I'll let you decide for whether that's okay or not, but I don't really care. Music is music, whatever gets you going. There's also be people, and I was kind of one of these people. To an extent, like obviously I had the Mormon music, the Christian music, because that's pretty clairvoyant that it should be okay. As well, though, I listen to video game music because it doesn't have any words; it's just music. uh, Eventually I would break this rule, but but yeah, because yeah. Uh, but yeah, I would say that part of my mission was a very happy part of my mission because, or not very happy, it's just a happier part of my mission because I could actually do stuff without getting into. I mean, there's some gray areas, but those gray areas are pretty operable, and so they were to my benefit. Um, yeah. Just like with any mission, there are some jerks. One thing that's a recurrent theme anywhere, mission wise, is that there are some missionaries that are straight up jerks that are deserving of a lot of ill. I'm not saying they should have bad things in their life, but I think they should have some sort of thing happen to open their eyes a little bit. But yeah. Anyways, so yeah, Arizona, pretty nice. Korea though, directly after quarantine, yeah, I would say this is another thing with Arizona. I lucked out with a lot of my companions because, as I mentioned, the missionaries come in twos usually, and so they have a partner that they literally have to stay with the whole time unless they're in the bathroom or something. But yeah, I lucked down Korea. A lot of my companions were very nice and kind and manageable, and I would consider my friends even now. Um, Not that I really talk to them all that much, to be realistic, being the introvert I am. But yeah, there's a lot of missionaries that were very nice that I worked with in Arizona. But in Korea, it became a different thing because most of my companions were poo poo. Yeah, not great. And if you're watching this video, I don't care. I'll admit. Chances are, if you're watching this video and you're my companion in Korea, you were not my favorite. That's just how things work. It's not to say didn't have good companions. I had good companions, of course, but most of them weren't my cup of tea exactly. Especially my first companionship. I was in a trio, which rarely happens. And let's just say the other companions who were already companions, they were already best friends before the mission. They both lived in Korea prior because they were both military children. Both their daddies worked in the military and were stationed in Korea. So naturally, they knew each other. They were very good friends, and yeah, had military mindset times 1,000. The church and I think military kind of works pretty similarly, mind wise, where it's like rules are rules and they're to be respected no matter what. And then sometimes people can take the rules overboard to be the best of the best, because that's just the American mindset is you have to be the best of the best. You have to do everything 150% correct. At least in that sort of idea, the very gung ho, yeah, America, is, especially with the military mindset, is there's a way to do everything, and if you don't do it that way, people get mad. And so, there may or may have not been some times that with one of the companions, and specifically, that I wanted to deck him as hard as I could in the face. But because I was a missionary and I don't know how law works in Korea and what is covered and what isn't, I didn't dare. But let me tell you, the rage and anger was there because he was not a good guy. He was a jerk and made my life rough and made my already clear fact of depression worse to the point of suicide. There may or may have not been some points that during that portion of my mission that I thought, you know, it'd be nice. It'd be nice if a car just randomly ran me over, or if I just randomly got a heart attack. Having to wish for death isn't a good thing, and so I think that maybe the church should do something to make missions more enjoyable.